welcome back to Visions. I'm Mirella Rich. If you've just joined us, we're here with Anita Monk, who is the producer of the new TV series called Rock Down here on Channel 31. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
Now, before the break, you were talking about your background in music. Let's hear the rest of that.
All right. Well, probably one of the best things that ever happened to me was my mother made me learn piano.
Ah, okay.
I hated it.
Yeah.
I wanted to play what was on the radio.
Yeah.
And all I learnt was Bach and Beethoven and Grieg and Tchaikovsky and I, you know, I really didn't want to keep going there every week, and I'd practice my scales and I go, I don't want to practice my scales, I don't want to do this. And I think I was about 13 or 14, and I came home one day and my mother had rung my piano teacher and realised that she was taking some sort of concoction of chemist drugs. I mean, she wasn't a young lady, she was old. Sometimes I'd go along for my piano lessons and she'd be frothing at the mouth and she'd be really happy, and I'd make mistakes and she'd go, and then sometimes she'd be on a downer and I'd get wrapped across the knuckles. But when you're a kid, you don't know that there's something funny on. But Mum rang her, and apparently she was off on some sort of
tangent.
Yes, somewhere. And Mum said, you don't have to go to
anymore.
I burst into tears. I was so happy. I was so happy. And I didn't touch a piano for 7 years. It was such a bad experience. And even though I can tell people that I hated learning the piano, that's what I've made my money out of for the last 25 years, because I learnt how to play it properly. So if I hear something on the radio, I know exactly what I'm playing, I know exactly where my fingers go. It's just so important to have that background. And another thing about growing up where I grew up was that, how long have we gone?
That's
okay. Where we grew up, the thing about the
it's
music,
a good foundation too, though, isn't it? Like
absolutely.
The piano, because it's a classical and it's a discipline.
Absolutely. And there were good people to learn from. I mean, Bach and Tchaikovsky and Grieg, and they were good players. Also, my mother was very trendy and hip when I was young in the 60s, and she used to go out and buy us records, and one of the records was Peter, Paul and Mary, and she loved Peter, Paul and Mary. We all loved, and there were 5 of us, and we learned harmonies from Peter, Paul and Mary, because they were great to learn harmonies from. And now I'm a good harmony singer. I'm very good at picking up harmonies because I learnt from good people. And when I was 20, I decided, after doing a couple of years in offices, which is also a very good background for somebody, I wanted to be on stage or on television or whatever. And so I went to a drama school for a few years, and I was very shy, and I learnt to be not shy anymore.
Get rid of all your inhibitions.
Yes. And also when I was 17, my boyfriend had a band at that stage that used to go out and support all these people that I'm now getting on the show. And he put a microphone in front of me one day and said, you can sing, why don't you be a singer in our band? I went, no, I can't, I'm too shy, I couldn't do it. I was too shy. And then I started working when I was about 23. I went and saw this fantastic band in Melbourne. Well, I'd seen them anyway. I was working at the Prospect Hill Hotel, and the Prospect Hill used to get lots and lots of bands through, and they were all recording bands, and they all had songs on the charts, all the main headline bands, and one of them was Goanna Band. And I thought, oh, this band is fantastic. And they were such nice people, and I thought, they're just nice people. They're not. I used to think that musos were something weird, you know, and they weren't. And I thought, well, I can do this, you know. So I worked for them for a couple of years, and then I started auditioning for bands, and it just went on for there.
That's beautiful. It's like whatever field you want to get into, get to know the people first, and then you'll find it's nothing to be afraid of.
Exactly. So that was a good, working for Goanna Band, and I wasn't in the band. I was doing their merchandising, but I learnt so much about the music industry from being in Goanna Manor, which was a hive of activity. It was great. It was very, very good.
And your boyfriend at the time, he was in a band.
This was earlier. A boyfriend that I don't know where he's ended up, but I think he was a product of the era, might I say. I see him every now and again, and I think, oh dear, you're still there, aren't you?
So how would you describe the Melbourne dance scene now?
There's a lot of stuff going on, but I feel that there's not a lot of people that they can look up to. I'll go back to my time when I was working at the Prospect Hill Hotel. And for a main band, you might have the Models, or you might have John Farnham Band, or you might have Goanna Band. And then under that, the support band would be a band that's got some great songs. I'm sorry, guys, I can't think of any of your names off the top of my head. They would have great songs.
You know who you are.
Yeah, they know who they are. And they were more my age.
Yeah.
And they would have some great songs that just weren't there yet. But I remember being in some of those support bands, and you'd sit and watch the other band, you go, I can be as good as that. And you'd watch them and you'd go, that's fantastic. Oh, I could do a lick like that. We're better than them. Or the drummer would say, I'm better than he is. You know, all this sort of. And then underneath that, there was another support band. So you were always supporting somebody who was better than you. And the band that was the top was always a recording band.
Yeah.
Then during the 80s, at some stage, the whole scene fell apart. It was just, the main bands were production. They had so much production. It was, how much more production can we get? A double three-way? Maybe we can get a triple three-way in these small rooms. And in the end, they couldn't sustain the production. And so they'd all decided that they'd stop. I mean, this isn't from my point of view. It's not from anybody else's. This is just what I saw.
Yeah.
They said, we're all going to play the big places. So all the smaller places suddenly lost all their headlining bands, and they were trying to rely on the up-and-coming ones who weren't quite there yet, and the whole thing fell apart. And then for a long time, that's when people went to computers. It was easier to try and do something on the computer, and now the band scene is great for the youngies, but they don't have those recording bands to be with, to watch. There's not a lot of top recording bands playing around Melbourne scene at the moment.
Right.
So you can only watch a couple of them who are good, but it's not, to me, it's not the same type of music.
Yeah.
You're not watching recording bands because there aren't a lot of them in Australia at the moment, the young ones.
Okay. We're about to go to a break now. You're watching Visions. Stay with us. We'll be back with more very shortly.